welcome to my channel. Today is Monday and we're going to do True Crime and Makeup Monday. As always, graphic warning, graphic description of crime scenes. I believe there's child molestation involved, negative connotations, death, and rape and murder. That being said, let's just get started. William Dean Christensen, known as the American Jack the Ripper, was a Canadian-American serial killer who killed and mutilated at least 4 people in Canada and the United States between 1982 and 1983. Suspected in 20 further killings across several countries, Christensen was convicted of 2 murders in Pennsylvania and sentenced to life in prison plus an additional 40 years in Maryland for rape, but he died 3 years into his sentence. Born in Bethesda, Maryland on September 24th, 1945, the upbringing of Christensen is not fully known. His criminal pastimes began in 1969 when he picked up a hitchhiker aged 19 in the Georgetown neighborhood of Washington, D.C. He drove her to an isolated area where he raped and stabbed her 19 times in her arms, hands, and face. She survived the attack, and Christensen was arrested. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for this crime, but instead of going to prison, he was transferred to a state facility for delinquents. He was released a year later in 1970. Now, see, this always gets me. Like, I read about these things, and y'all know I do my research into them and whatnot. He stabbed somebody 19 times after he raped them. To me, that would say, this will probably happen again. We shouldn't let this guy out. And instead, they were like, let's send him to a facility for juvenile delinquents, because he wasn't a juvenile. He was 19. Let's send him to a facility for juvenile delinquents and release him a year later so he can do worse. Because that's obviously why we're here, isn't it? In 1974, Christensen and another man abducted a go-go dancer in Georgetown and drove her to a secluded area. The two took turns raping and beating the woman, with Christensen threatening her by saying, "I will dismember you with a hacksaw." Eventually, the two drove her to Christensen's parents' home, where they again raped her. The two were arrested, and Christensen was sentenced to 16 years in prison. He was released early in 1980. Again, as a situation where you've already arrested this guy for rape and stabbing, and then you rape somebody else, and you're still like, you know what, let's let him out early. Somebody was not doing their job here. In July 1980, Christensen abducted a young woman at a bus stop in Washington, D.C., drove her to one of his family members' houses, and raped her, but let her go afterwards. He was soon connected to the crime, and arrest warrants were issued. In January of 1981, Christensen attempted to move to Toronto, but was arrested for falsifying information on his passport, due to which he spent 21 days in jail. Soon after his release, he created an alias called Richard Owen. On April 16th, 1981, Owen kidnapped and raped a woman in Montreal. Arrested yet again, he pleaded guilty later that July and was sentenced to a year and 6 months in prison. Again, another situation where we have multiple crimes at this point, and everybody's just like, you know what, a year and a half, that sounds good, I just, when I research these, I spend most of the time thinking, could have saved a lot of lives if you just kept him in prison the first time. But in this case, it's not even the first time. You had a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time for criminal acts that he committed, and nobody seemed to understand that this was not going away. He was going to continue to do these things, and nobody was like, yeah, we should keep this one in prison, because he's clearly not stopping, and he's getting worse. And I don't understand how they could just sit there and be like, yeah, we're just going to let him go. We're just going to let him go. He doesn't need to be here. He's rehabilitated. I'm sorry, but after the 4th crime, I would just strongly suggest that he probably cannot be rehabilitated and should never have been let out. But it would be a great story if that was where this segment ended, but it's not. So we know he was let out and he went on doing his thing. Afterwards, it was discovered that Owen was actually Christensen, and since he was wanted in Washington, D.C. for rape, U.S. authorities contacted Canadian officials to transfer Christensen to a jail in Maryland. However, due to a clerical error, Christensen was mistakenly released. This is just like one screw up after another. I'm just going to be for real with you. It's just one screw up after another. And they're like, oh, he's wanted in Washington, D.C., but you should have just kept him when you had him. And we wouldn't be in this situation. But we are. In April of 1982, abducted Sylvie Trudel, 27, in Montreal. He brought her to an empty apartment where he raped, beat, and strangled her to death. Afterwards, he decapitated and dismembered her body with a hacksaw. Now, if you recall, he had threatened the previous victim with cutting up her body with a hacksaw, and now here he actually did it. And still nobody seemed to put this together and say, oh, gee, this might be the guy that the girl reported last time who threatened to cut her up with a hacksaw. No, that would have been too easy. We don't make connections like that, apparently. That same month, Christensen strangled Muriel Guay, 26, again dismembering the body afterwards. Both of their remains were discovered on April 27th. And there's not like a cooling off period between murders or anything. He's just like rapid succession, one right after the other. Trudel was determined to have been dead for about 20 to 30 hours, and Guay was determined to have been dead for 10 days. Christensen was almost immediately identified as a suspect due to him owning the apartment Trudel was found in, and witnesses identifying him as the last person seen with Guay. Christensen soon fled to the United States, while Canadian arrest warrants were issued to locate him. The following month, Canadian detectives interviewed Christensen's parents at the family house in Maryland. The two admitted they had met their son and smuggled him $5,000. Over the next few months, Christensen was allegedly spotted in 6 different states: Florida, New York, New Jersey, Georgia, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania. Christensen, who during that time was actually reading between Trenton, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was using the alias John Robert Schroeder. On September 23rd, 1982, Christensen picked up go-go dancer Michelle Angers, 23, in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Now, I have been to Scranton, Pennsylvania, and there's, nothing there. So, for somebody to not notice that this woman was missing just kills me, because there's, nothing there. It's not a well-populated area, but apparently nobody knows she was missing for a little while. And drove her to Dickinson City, where he raped and stabbed her 30 times, killing her. On June 29th, 1983, Christensen shot 2 men at an Amtrak railroad station in Trenton. The men survived. Afterwards, he created another alias, a lot of aliases, so try to keep them together here, called Jeffrey Schrader. On December 4th, 1983, Christensen shot and killed Joseph Connolly, 51, outside of a bar after an argument. Because that's what I think. I'm going to argue with this person, and because they didn't agree with me, I'm going to go stay outside a bar for God knows how long and shoot him. This is not how we solve arguments, you guys. Like, you could just talk it out. We don't have to shoot people, but I mean, obviously this guy felt he did, but don't do that. We just don't do that. It's not nice. Witnesses to the shooting reported what they had seen, and Christensen was located a few hours later and was arrested. Although he had been arrested, Christensen was not yet immediately identified and continued to claim his name was Jeffrey Schrader. He was soon convicted of Connolly's murder. The FBI was brought in to identify Schrader and collected his fingerprints and uploaded them into a database, though the FBI erroneously said the fingerprints did not match anyone on their radar. However, a few days after his conviction, Schrader was positively identified as Christensen, having been on the run for almost 2 years. U.S. and Canadian authorities suspected Christensen had killed over a dozen people since then. Due to this and the brutality of the known killings, Pennsylvania Police Constable Bill McAndrew labeled Christensen a real American Jack the Ripper. Because that's what we need. Like, we need to rename serial killers by their shortcomings, not cool names like Jack the Ripper. We need, like, loser names. You know what I mean? That's what we need to do. A name which stuck with media outlets, who soon coined that as the official nickname for Christensen. I gotta look into getting some more colored liners. In early 1985, Pennsylvania investigators linked Angie's murder to Christensen after finding a bloody knife and hacksaw in his home. Christensen was convicted of Angie's murder in 1990, for which he was sentenced to serve 10 to 20 years in prison. He was also brought to Maryland, as he had not been prosecuted for the 1981 rape of a woman there. He was convicted and sentenced to 40 years in prison. In 1990, a cellmate of Christensen revealed that he had allegedly confessed to killing 24 people, 2 in England, 4 in Canada, and 16 in the United States. The claims were investigated, but nothing was proven. On October 30th, 1990, Christensen died of natural causes while imprisoned at the State Correctional Institution in Huntingdon. His death was not reported until July of 1991. I don't know why they waited so long to report his death. I feel like that's something that they probably should have gotten out there, just to, like, let everybody know, but they waited almost a year. This story for me is just, like, a prime example of police failure. And I don't say that in any way to dog the police, because I think they're great. You know, they're great to have. They do their job. They are there to protect and serve, and they do that. But this is like one of these times, just one time, somebody should have said, hey, this dude's crazy, and this is like the 8th murder we've arrested him for, so maybe we should, like, not let him go. And somehow, I don't know if he had, like, some sort of Freudian deal with the devil or what, but, like, he just kept getting away. He just kept getting away with it. It's like, how does that work repeatedly for somebody? Like, I mean, you hear people, like, serial killers all the time that are like, oh, the devil made me do it, or I believe that the devil was keeping me safe while I committed these crimes in his name because I never got caught, or... But for me, in this case, being able to say, I did get caught, but I was released every time I got caught. And this allowed me to continue my crime spree. That, to me, makes a better deal for the devil than better argument for being protected by the devil, I mean, than not getting caught at all. Like, how do you get arrested multiple times for the exact same crime and never actually be put away for it? You know what I mean? Like, you have to be doing something right if you're not staying caught, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's just, it's weird to me. It's weird to me. I know. Tell me what you guys think. Is it weird? Is it not weird? What do we think about it? Because I don't know. I just feel like there has to be some kind of argument made that he's got some kind of protection going on. Because nobody should be able to get arrested that many times and continue to be released back into the public. Like it didn't happen. Because it did happen. And they had him dead to rights multiple times for crimes he committed, and nobody made him stay in prison. Nobody argued it. Nobody was like, maybe we should keep this guy in prison. Nothing. And I mean, there's no other way to say it than he got lucky. Because nobody else would be able to commit those kind of crimes and just leave jail the next day and be like, be on your merry way, commit a few more, I guess. You know what I mean? I don't know. Well, I don't believe in, like, the construct of, like, heaven and hell and God and devil. I do think that there is demons and deities that, you know, can help criminals accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. Everybody's got somebody. So, I mean, it's possible. I'm always the one who will tell you to never say never. So it's definitely possible. But I don't know. I want to know what you guys think. So leave me something in the comments. Tell me what you think of Mr. Christensen and his deeds. And do you believe in the devil? Do you believe that you can make a deal with the devil to, I guess, keep you undercover in a way? Tell me what you think. Let me know what you think. Drop your suggestions in the comments, because I'm always looking for new cases. This is Serial Killers of the Decades at the moment. So this was the 80s. We have the 90s coming up. I'm really excited to give those segments out. So let me know what you want to see in the future. Let me know what you think. And as always, please don't do anything I wouldn't do. Be cautiously kind to others. And make good choices. Bye!